This is the CreaseCast.
What is up, everybody? It's your boys. We in studio. We in the Crease Cave. It's Lock Daddy. It's Sea-Dog. It's JK New over there in this producer's studio. You know how it be.
Can you tell that Cody is hearing the music as we're talking for the first time? This is the first time we're using some of the new buttons that we have, and that includes having an actual intro to play us into. It's not an editing magic trick anymore.
Yeah, guys, you're in for it. You just got the most professional intro we've ever had. The rest of the show, we're gonna try to keep up, the expectations of that intro.
Try to not go back to our amateur ways.
I appreciate the amateur ways, though.
Yeah, there's a kitsch to it, you know.
You know what we never did, which is like the super crappy recording off a cell phone and holding a mic and reaching out to each other.
We got one Blue Yeti and we're just splitting it between the two of us.
And you can hear us hands all over the mic, okay, now it's your turn to talk. Okay. Yeah. But no, we didn't do that. We did it professionally, and what an episode to start acting a bit more professional, because we have a game to recap.
Yeah.
An actual NHL game.
A regular season game.
Fun game too, no less. Fortunately, the hockey gods said, you know what? The CreaseCast is going to want to recap a game that's actually worth talking about.
Yes.
They don't want a shutout. It looked like it was going to be a shutout, but things kind of got, figured out towards the end of the game, as they tend to do. Canucks losing a shootout. They got 1 point, so they're not the worst in the division.
Not the worst.
But they're hanging in there.
They're hanging in there. Start of the year, they're already desperately clinging on to that wild card spot that they want. I guess technically, they're second in or they're third in the division, which is right where we put them.
Well, you had them first, didn't you?
I had them second.
Okay,
I didn't.
Okay.
Oh, I'm not that crazy.
No, you're not that crazy.
That's Rob Fay.
No, it was Jeff Merrick who had them first, and I was like, how do you talk to all of these executives and people in the industry, and your conclusion is, Vancouver's number one?
Did you see the incredible clip where it was Anthony Stewart, where it's David Amber being like, "What don't you like about Vancouver?" And Anthony Stewart just goes, that's the whole bit. It's so good.
There's a wonderful relationship between specifically Anthony Stewart and Canucks Twitter. He already knows, his first broadcast, he was just kind of I don't want to say anything that's gonna get me on blast with Canucks Twitter.
He's a smart man.
He's a very smart man.
He's a very smart man.
After every single I think intermission piece he does, he checks his DMs or who's mentioned him in the thing, because I've gotten tons of likes where I'm like, you could tell Anthony Stewart's scared to say anything, and he'd like it or reply with a GIF where he's like,
yeah. So he knows how to play the game. He knows how to play the game.
He knows how to market himself, which is great.
As does Elliot Friedman. He showed off the Rathbone jersey he got last night. That was very cool.
Showed off the Rathbone jersey and insulted Kevin BX at the same time, which is pretty much what you need.
I love him and Kevin BX's on-air rivalry. I think
it was pretty great.
Classic.
When
it's incredible.
Well, I don't know. I think it was the second period intermission where Elliot's phone beeped. He got the WhatsApp notification. Speaking of which, I better turn my phone off. But his WhatsApp notification went off during the the cut back from commercial. And so Kevin is in the middle of talking, and he looks over. He's like, "You're gonna tell us what it's about?" And it was about the news that we'll probably kind of touch on a bit later. But the Brady Tkachuk rumored contract. He didn't want to spill the beans, which is a bit rude of him, frankly. Yeah. And Kevin BX had called him out for it, which is great. He's like,
I'm so happy Kevin BX is on my TV again. I missed him, his takes and his broadcast demeanor a lot.
It's a shame that he's so good that he's on the national broadcast and not not just specifically in Vancouver, working with Murphy or something.
Yeah, he could be the fill-in for John Garrett if John ever wanted to take a night off or something.
Yeah, or if he eats too many hot dogs or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but anyways, folks, we'll get right into the game.
Yeah,
game recap. Power play was rough. If you watch that game,
boy, howdy, it was not good.
The first two periods in general, the Canucks kind of looked a little out of sorts. They were holding their own. The bottom six did really well, which was
Surprising.
Absolutely shocking because that doesn't typically happen. Carried by one Nils Höglander, the big hog himself. Canucks got outshot in the first, and then over the course of the final 2 periods and overtime, they ended up outshooting the Oilers 28-20. Unfortunately, Mike Smith decided to play very well for most of the game.
For 59 minutes, he played very well.
Outside of
or 50, 60, 64. Sorry, there was overtime.
Yeah.
There was overtime.
Outside of the 2 goals that he let in, which were kind of stinkers. Actually, I guess he didn't really have. He had no chance on the Nugent Hopkins ones, but the Hughes goal was.
The Ekman Larson goal. Yeah, that was a good shot. The Ekman Larson goal was just a nice seeing eye puck. The Hughes goal was
that was funny.
Stinky.
I saw that
stinky
and
one.
I saw that and I was just like, oh man, if they lose because of this goal, like that's
yeah. There was I think Drancer was talking about on the Vancast today. How the crowd was very out of it in Edmonton for most of the game, or like they just weren't that crowd, which I think is actually like I've actually heard that's like something that came with the new arena, basically. Like like Oilers fans, even when the team wasn't very good at Rexall, they were a lot louder. But then when they moved into the new building, it turned into a morgue for whatever reason. Like most game days, it's much quieter. That probably is just due to the fact like. I think it has a lot to do with like arena architecture and the fact of like the old buildings were not really built for like crazy weren't built I don't think with like noise reduction in mind, whereas I think buildings today are like arenas are.
Yeah, because like the buildings of old weren't really specific, like you need to account for acoustics for sports, for concerts and whatever, whereas their building maybe it's just built for general use, and maybe that comes at the expense of like fan noises, like just not
echoing through. Yeah, like a lot of the newer buildings. Like I think that was the same thing for the Canucks when they moved from the Coliseum into GM Place, now Rogers Arena.
Speaking of great arena noise, as the only person that was in the Abbotsford Center, let me tell you, it was so great hearing practice noises. Like you really pick up the crispness of the skating, the shots. Like I think. Like that barn is going to be like rowdy.
It's going to be a fun
and it's
place
going to be
to play.
a fun place to watch hockey just because the sound like picks up really damn good.
I would imagine so. The minor hockey buildings have a lot of like that classic kind of feel to them.
That character, that heart.
Yeah, they got that camp.
They got that little heart. But anyway, back to the topic, folks.
Yeah.
Game was pretty much looking a little lost, and then Canucks bounce back. They force overtime. They look really good in overtime for the most part. They controlled play. Force a shootout. Some great goals from Bosef Horvat.
Holy cow. Like I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but that goal was filthy.
Talk about a captainly way of like keeping your team in it, because they were down in the shootout and they needed a goal to keep it alive.
Yep.
And man, did he ever turn up with that one?
He really did. That was Bo Horvat is one of those players who he plays like an old school guy most of the time. So when he pulls out the new school, just absolutely perfect, like deke, it's kind of it makes it all the more fun. Like it's all the more wild when he does it. That not to take away from Pedersen's earlier in the game, which was all right. I mean, he didn't score on it. No, it was nice though. Like Mike Smith's best save of the game was that one. That one could have ended. That one very easily could have ended that game.
The flashed leather on the Pedersen deke was very frustrating to watch.
I thought it went in. I was so sure both times it went in.
I thought he was completely beat, but unfortunately he made the save. And he survived another NHL game. Normally he gets a hit or takes a bump, and you never know if he's ever going to come back again. But
he's a soccer player. He rolls around like he's dying.
That Oilers team is like the most equivalent to a soccer team to watch.
Really?
Like, a Nurse, I think, is the same way. Like he gets like bumped by a breeze and he's like up in arms looking at the refs crying. Like he and Smith are just the worst players to watch.
Yeah. I feel like there are worse offenders than them. Like Vegas comes to mind as a team that does that a lot. And I think we actually have a Vegas topic kind of in line with that later in the show.
Yeah.
But the Oilers have a couple guys on there. And you know what? Like if you want to put a soccer spin on it, like I don't think you saw any of the Canada World Cup qualifier game yesterday, but Alphonso Davies had this incredible goal where he's just literally like it looked like a Connor McDavid kind of rush where he just stole the ball from I think the Panama player like within an inch of it crossing into foul territory outside the line. He steals it, takes off, and puts up like a goal right in the net. Puts one right in the net. And they end up winning that game 4-1. And that was like, and I'll say this for the Canucks, like in terms of like playing against Connor McDavid, I think they did an okay job. Like it wasn't perfect.
No, it wasn't great, but I'm sorry.
Learning the new mics as we go. I don't think it was perfect. Like how they did against him and Draisaitl. Obviously, the power play goal comes to mind. I think you could probably throw a little bit of that first goal into the mix as well. I forget if they were on the ice for that or not, if Puljujärvi plays on a different line at that point. Because Nurse was out there, Puljujärvi was out there.
I think McDavid picked up 2 points, so he must have been out there.
He must have been out there. Okay. Yeah. It's a like I think they did better than I expected, especially considering the pairings that they went with and how weak the defense was going into this game.
Yeah.
I think they did not as bad as say last year was. Like I think last year every time he stepped on the ice, you were like, "Oh, well, they're screwed. Goodbye. Game over." This time no. They looked a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, they looked they kept even with him for the most part. Like you said, the D pairings, they went with Rathbone and Burrows, which like really inexperienced NHL pairing right there. They didn't play too much against McDavid, but like they held their own. They had a couple of good rush chances thanks to, I think it was Nils Höglander. I mean, the answer to most questions is who I feel like caused all the good things.
We should probably just get to player of the game, should we not? Like,
yeah, why don't we get it?
Yeah, I think we got to get to the Infinity Gauntlet. Jacob, why don't you play the Infinity Gauntlet button?
The Infinitude Gobbler. It's identical to the one that Sabu wore in the movie Avenga Boys.
Yeah, that's a new button we got there. We got sounds.
We got sounds and we got graphics, so make sure to check out our YouTube channel, guys. CreaseCast YouTube. We actually have graphics. We got camera angle changes. Like, man, look at that. Oh,
look at that.
Zoomed in on my mug.
Yeah. Maybe Infinity Gauntlet is Jacob. Jacob gets Infinity Gauntlet. Jacob is the one flipping all the cameras and stuff and pressing the buttons.
He gets the producer Infinity. He gets one of the gems.
Yes, he does.
He gets the time gem because he's keeping control of our time and our show.
That's right. That's
goodness.
What a spin.
Wow. Okay,
that's good.
Let's be real.
That's
we all know what
worthy.
That is a little bit. We know what Lachlan's Infinity Gauntlet pick is going to be, so let's jump straight into my pick.
Yes, go to yours first.
Pretty obvious because I've already mentioned his name like 8 times in this episode. Nils Höglander. That team does not but that team does not eke out a single point if not for his efforts on the power play and at 5v5. Kid was all over the ice. Good defensive reads. Two-way play, still a work in progress, but considering he was up against like the top line in the league for a lot of his shifts, did pretty good. And have to respect his game as a pint-sized little fella.
Short King Nils.
Putting in work. Created so many chances, man. Like
he was
chance after chance. It was insane.
He was on a mission. And that's largely, there was the whole the preseason he didn't look very good. There were large stretches of the preseason where people were like, "Hey, what's up with Nils Höglander? He does not look the same." And he was kind of like there are like plays that he would normally have and he'd bobble the puck or something.
Yeah.
He didn't look nearly as confident.
He didn't look comfortable.
Yes.
He was doing a lot of the little things, right? Like
terrible.
he was still busting his ass and skating really well and hounding on pucks wherever he could, but it just looked like the timing wasn't off on his shot and the chances that he would have scored on last year, he wasn't seemingly doing that in preseason. Mm-hmm. That's why they always say don't really judge preseason too heavily because here he is against the Oilers.
At least not with your star players like Höglander. Is he a star player at this point? Would you consider him there? Is it still are we still a ways to go on that?
Well, Travis Green had a very fascinating quote after the game where he basically said, Höglander played a good game. Ideally, he'd like to play Höglander 14 to 18 minutes a night and move him up and down the lineup to try and provide a spark to every line. That is high praise for a under 21 player who's only in his second season of the NHL. First full season in the NHL.
That's the highest praise I think you can get from an NHL coach at all.
Or Travis Green.
Or Travis Green. Like any coach really, because like it's one thing when you're a player. Again, I've obviously McDavid is the obvious name to use here because we just saw him play. Mm-hmm. I would say Elias Pettersson is in this conversation too. Quinn Hughes, what have you. When you're as good as those players are, like, you know what you're getting out of them. There's nothing. Coach isn't going to be like, well, ideally, I'd like to do this because of that. Because they're like, well, you already know what he is. They don't need to explain what they're going to do with that guy because they already know he's incredible and he's I forget what I'm looking for here. The word I'm looking for, transcendent talent. Okay. That's what I'm looking for.
It looks like you were trying to do transcendent and sensational.
I did. Time. I think that's what happened. That's what got crossed up there, and so you know what you're getting out of those players right away. Mm-hmm. Höglander is a player that has to work a little bit harder for that kind of opportunity, just because he's not necessarily Austin Matthews or McDavid,
but he's smaller.
He's smaller. He's very
he has to
good.
Work a lot harder for his looks, basically.
Yes,
right?
And so for Travis Green and first of all, that's a surprisingly non-hockey speak quote from Travis Green.
You don't get a lot from Travis Green, but that's probably the most telling quote he's ever had as the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks. That was extremely candid, and it's extremely high praise to be told, I want to put you in every possible situation where we might need help because you're that good. My line sucks so much that you're the solution, not Elias Pettersson, not JT Miller, not Bo Horvat, but Nils Höglander is my solution for providing some jump to my forward groups.
He's the updated version of Jannik Hansen. He is the new and improved Jannik Hansen. So that's what I was going to say, the new and improved Jannik Hansen. Yeah. He's the honey badger.
He's got that honey badger in him.
Yeah.
Thatcher Demko, obviously your pick for Infinity Gauntlet.
This is as if there was any doubt.
Yeah, we all knew it was coming, folks. I agree. I do think he was really good last night, but I had to give the edge to Höglander because they don't score the goals without his efforts.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't know really if the shots that Demko faced were necessarily that dangerous. I thought he faced a lot of volume, but they weren't necessarily that dangerous.
There were some doorstep stops on Puljujärvi and McDavid. Like he played just as well as Mike Smith did. He matched him.
I think he's better than Smith.
He was better than Smith.
Because the goals that
I wasn't sure if that was
Demko allowed in were like
there were no chance.
There's no chance.
There was
on that
zero
Puljujärvi
chance.
Goal. That was just a bad read by Chiasson that led to a complete collapse by the whole team.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure.
But yeah, like those goals you couldn't really have a chance on. But like I just cycle back to that Hughes goal, and you're like.
And you know what? It's more important. I think the fun thing with the Infinity Gauntlet is giving it out to more than one person, so that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to have the same exact player, but yeah, for me it was Thatcher Demko. I think he was lights out, and again, another guy who maybe I think you and I were talking about it, that he didn't have the most incredible. Again, another case of didn't have the most incredible preseason. Wasn't terrible, but wasn't amazing either. Again, that's fine. That's what the preseason's for.
Yeah.
And he came out here yesterday, and he was the sole reason they got to OT. Outside of the when it comes to keeping them in it, he kept them in it for long enough for the rest of the team to be able to come back and tie it.
Yeah,
because with a different goaltender in net, that game's over in the second period.
Yeah.
The first 10 minutes, it was pretty even. For about the next period and a half, it was all Edmonton for the entire second period.
Yeah.
Most of the last half of the first and probably the first half of the third. The Canucks were lost in a number of times, and Demko was there to bail them out again. And that's what we talked about before in the beginning of the season, was that if they're going to make the playoffs, they need Thatcher Demko to steal them a lot of wins because of that defense. Because that defense is looking a little sus, and he did that last night. He fully did that. They got a point out of that game, a game that they should have lost because of Thatcher Demko.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll get into the other players of the game, because the real, if there's something higher than the Infinity Gauntlet, we know who this belongs to. It's Tyler Myers, the hit,
the Lifetime Achievement Award.
The hit heard round the stratosphere.
Yes.
10 years later, as put by Thomas Drance, 10 years later, the Duncan Keith elbow has been avenged.
Yes.
And for those that don't know, Duncan Keith very infamously laid a disgustingly cheap elbow on Daniel Sedin and pretty much altered his shooting from that point on. He was not the same shooter ever again. And
apparently, I think they've made amends since then, interestingly enough. I think
of course, it's the Sedins.
Yeah, that's true. They're too nice.
Yeah, of course. I'm sure they watched that hit and they're like, oh, Myers, that was a little too violent.
Yeah.
You know, like, but for Canucks fans, that hit was amazing. I think it earned Myers enough goodwill that from here until the end of the season, anytime someone writes about Myers' blown coverage or giveaway or whatever that leads to a goal against, it's going to carry an asterisk that says at the bottom in like a footnote that says,
okay, but the hit though.
Yeah. At this, we note this mistake, but at the same time, and then it'll be a link to the GIF where he absolutely annihilates Duncan Keith.
It's like the Rick roll for Canucks fans. It's just it's just going to be every time like, hey, click this link. It's just going to be Tyler Myers throwing that huge body check
your
on
daily
Duncan
dose
Keith.
of
Cut him.
Endorphins.
Cut him. Like that.
Smash his face.
Yeah,
with his helmet.
like, and what he did, like, which is, this is surprising for Tyler Myers in particular because I think he struggles at hitting from time to time, like because
he doesn't really play that physical for a big dude.
He doesn't play physical, and and because of that, he's not a great hitter. So often his hits end up leaning into the penalty side. That was a clean hit. Like, that was just a normal, he hit the guy very hard, and the guy happened to be smaller than him.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It was a pretty cool hit.
If you haven't seen it yet, like,
go watch that. It's funny.
Hook that GIF to your veins.
Is it a little weird to get really excited about a guy hitting like a 30-something, like a 37-year-old Duncan Keith? Yeah. Do I care? No. It was funny. Like, it was fun.
We all get our catharsis out of something. And that felt pretty damn good to watch.
I saw a couple tweets. From Blackhawks people being like, "Hey, well done, cool. Only took you 10 years. You finally hit him with all those and enjoy all those Stanley Cups you won." And all I could think of myself. I'm going to put this in the nicest way I can. If anyone should not want to be rehashing the 2010 era Blackhawks, maybe it's you guys right now. I'm going to say right now that, you know what, I would rather not win a Stanley Cup with people who don't cover up things that should be filed with the police, than win cups with people who do cover things that should be filed with the police.
Complicit in hiding and masking sexual assault. Yeah, I'm all good. I don't need a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, honestly, that's
pride.
Yep. Honestly, fine. I can take not winning cups over that any day of the week. So maybe
stay in your lane.
Maybe think about that next time.
Maybe stay in your lane.
Yeah.
Our listening numbers from Chicago are going to plummet after this from 1 to 0.
I mean, we do actually have a surprisingly high number of listeners in Virginia, which is interestingly enough. Most of our U.S. listeners are from California, so shout out to...
I can't imagine why.
Shout out to the people in Sharks territory who still care about me.
Thanks, Fear the Fin. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Other than Tyler Myers' hit, just some other player notes. JT Miller looking unbelievably frustrated after a single period of hockey, which was great. We were saying in the last episode how what if the gas leak year never stopped, and this year is just more of the same pain. Seeing him get really frustrated and screaming "fuck" as he went to the bench, like, just so funny. That man cares so much, and when he has off nights, it is so funny watching him just get super pissed off about it.
Yeah, it drags on. Like, he's one of those guys that once he's having the bad night, he's not coming out of it.
There's no recovery. He could score a goal.
He could score a hat trick, and it doesn't matter.
I think he got an assist on the first goal the night.
Maybe?
I think, because I'm pretty sure he did have a point.
He does have an assist. You're right. He did. He had 3 shots on goal as well.
Which is great. Like, the guy scores an assist, and he's still, like, at the last power play, he just, like, missed two passes to the blue line and just stopped skating. He looked so dejected It was amazing.
Yeah.
Keep it up, JT.
Second highest forward in time on ice too. So like he was having a night. He was having a a night enough like worthy enough of getting there according to the coaching staff.
They were giving him like a long leash to try and come out of the slump and be like we're not going to bench you for having a rough game. We want you to come out of it on the other side. And yeah, he's a little frustrated in OT, but you know what? It's okay.
Yeah,
we
a little
love it.
He's that was a case I think particularly in this game. Like sometimes JT Miller is just last year it seemed like he might just be in a mood. Like there were points like that.
Having a day.
And in this game though there was a clear notice in his on ice play where I think it was a real case of like a guy gripping the stick too tightly because he just kept bobbling pucks that he normally would have, like passes whiffing on shots that he normally has gets the full swing on, the full hit on connection on. It was just a night for him that he just, for some reason, it was just not clicking for him specifically. Yeah. A guy who it was clicking for though, and you put this in the thing, and I wanted to highlight him because he did really well. He would have potentially been my Infinity Gauntlet pick if not for Thatcher Demko's play. Tanner Pearson.
Oh, really?
I think Tanner, like the shootout attempt aside, was not super great.
Well, I put him in here because I thought his speed looked remarkably different.
Right?
Like
I thought he looked
that was
way
strange
faster.
because
that's what I put in there too. Because I was thinking, oh my god, like he suddenly looks like he's picked up like an extra like octave, like a whole.
He's
other
not known for being a speedy
mock.
guy, but like you watched him on these like zone entries, and you're like, who is this guy?
Yeah, I don't know. I would love to know what's up with his skating because he looked a lot quicker on the puck. He looked like he was making zone entries a lot faster.
Yeah,
and maybe that's just my imagination, but it looked like it. But if you saw it too, then
we're not crazy.
We're not crazy.
We're not crazy. We did
crazy.
see it. Because like otherwise, like his line with Horvat and Garland, like they struggled hard to like actually create offense and like but. Pearson himself had like quite a few looks purely based off of his speed and his rushes, which was good. He had that one chance in overtime where he just like blitzed down the left wing and had like that tap in opportunity. Didn't work out, but like the speed alone, you're just kind of like, if that's what he worked on in the offseason, like, hey, power to him. At his age,
that's exactly what you want.
Improve that. That's exactly what you need to work on in this day and age and in this league is to get faster. He could easily have gotten that extension and just been like, I'm going to pull an Eriksson and just not try anymore. He got it. He got his deal. He doesn't need to really improve his game anymore because he's set. But no, apparently worked on his skating. And shout out to him.
Yeah, he was always involved in the play when he was out there. Like I definitely noticed him more than I did Horvat and Garland for most of the night. And I'm not just talking about those rushes either. Like he was getting to the net front. There was the one play where he got knocked into Mike Smith that Mike Smith then
he
toppled
almost
over.
Died
yeah,
he
almost died.
He
could have died. But yeah, I noticed Pearson whenever he stepped on the ice for the majority of that game, and I think that's important, especially like you mentioned, like at his age, the thing that like your scoring ability is well established by that point. Mm-hmm. It's about can you keep up with the younger guys, and he did that.
I think that could be said about the next couple guys because Connor Garland, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Alex Chiasson, for different with varying results, they all kept pace with the Oilers' top line. Like I thought Ekman-Larsson actually
he looked good,
acquitted himself very well.
Yeah,
Garland did too. Like his speed looks great, and I love watching his edge work because he manages to find space really well, especially when under pressure. But unfortunately, like a lot of these times in the game, he had a lot of chances, but he'd catch a rut or he'd fall over or he'd just get rubbed out along the boards. Mm-hmm. But he was trying. He had a shift where he had double spinoramas in a row, which was really fun.
Yeah.
Some throwback to some Mason Raymond time. But like those three guys like aren't really typical guys like you'd expect. It's one or the other, right? Like they have a bad game and you don't notice them, or they have great games and you do notice them. In this case, they were acquitting themselves well. They were doing what they could. It just didn't really result in much, except for Ekman-Larsson on the power play.
Yeah, I think they will get. They're with the newer guys, like they'll get better as they go. Mm-hmm. I think like they'll get more comfortable with their line mates and everything. Yeah. Like for Garland, this is a completely new group, and even in terms of like the preseason, I don't think we saw Garland much with Horvat in Pearson. I don't remember
No,
him
he was
playing.
with Dickinson.
He was
for
with
quite
Dickinson a
bit.
lot.
And
Yeah, and
who
I
else
think
was it?
I think he ended up sitting out like a couple games because they were after he blocked that shot. They didn't want to like put him back. I think they put him in one game, maybe with I want to say like
I think he played
Pettersson.
the last preseason game or something. But
Yeah.
they didn't play him a lot because the Canucks preseason this year was audition season for the bottom 6, and it didn't really matter because at the end of the day they decided to go with Juho Lammikko
and Alex Chason.
who he plays fine. He's like a non-factor basically, and he gets power play time. But he just unfortunately had that one play where he broke free from the Canucks defensive structure. He left his man for some reason, and it just caused a spectacular collapse.
I made the initial mistake of not seeing the whole play for what it was, and immediately my mind just went to Tyler Myers in front of the net, seeing him standing still and not moving as Puljujarvi's corralling the rebound and putting it in. And then his attempt is to like dive at it, which is something Myers does way too often in general.
That's why the judgment comes in, because you saw him do that so much last year that when you saw it, you're like, oh, this is probably him.
Yeah, and for the record, like he still should have his feet moving. He should still be. He should not be. It should take him a little bit more time to register on the puck to that quick decision making there, but. The whole thing falls apart because Chason does not cover Darnell Nurse, and that forces everybody to kind of make weird snap decisions.
Yeah, I'm not
that
sure what
did
he's
not
doing.
go well.
Yeah, because as you pointed out to me in our DMs, you're like, who's Myers' partner in this situation anyway? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's Hughes, but Hughes has tracked all the way up to the point to cover Nurse's D-man, or Nurse's partner, and then as Hughes is up at the blue line, Chason wades to Hughes as well. So there's two guys focusing on one. So Nurse is completely wide open on the wing to just walk down for a shot.
Yeah.
So Pettersson has to leave his guy at the net front. JT Miller's in awkward land in the slot, and Myers is on Draisaitl duty.
Both Harman Dial and Daniel Wagner both put out like videos really well detailing that, and further and more or less Myers is kind of in like he's kind of in the right spot because he is trying to like stop like prevent any say rebound tap in from the other side if it's a straight shot through and into the slot kind of thing. But again, the problem overall is that that guy is not too close anymore because of the collapse out into the front of the front of the slot. So everybody kind of fell apart in that same group.
Yeah.
JT Miller lost his stick, which was weird. I saw somebody suggest that they were like, oh, he shouldn't have even gone for the stick. He should have just gone for the play. I'm like, I don't think he can do anything without it. Like he's kind of in a bad spot either way.
Yeah, I think he was a step behind. Like he didn't really have the reach to get on him at all.
And I think that's also partially why Myers read it a little wonky is because he thinks that Miller is a little in the short moment he has to make that call. It looks like Miller's on top of Puljujarvi, but he drops the stick.
Unfortunately.
So that means that technically no one's covering him.
Yeah, I think if he keeps a grip on his stick, I think he can maybe.
It's a closer play. I still think Puljujarvi has a little bit too much room, but it's definitely the odds on him being able to get the stick lift in to prevent something is much better. Yeah, is much higher.
The other thing, Rathbone and Burrows, the very rookie defenseman pairing. I thought they both looked good. Rathbone, I mean, like the asterisk, of course, is like these two didn't really play against the Oilers' top line, but when they were out against whatever competition it was, they look good. Burrows had like a couple moments where he was wading in towards the slot for one-timer chances off of Höglander. Like that's
that was a great setup. Like I honestly forgot about that play, but now I'm remembering it immediately because of that's how good it was. Like that was Kyle Burrows, I guess, is more or less supposed to be the like defensive guy on that pairing. If you had to peg one,
or like a stable guy, I guess.
Like the stay-at-home defenseman in theory. But that was a great activation. Like that was a smart read. That was with very low risk, and that like in the same way that I've been talking about Brad Hunt, and that's why I like what he potentially brings to the Canucks if he plays. Burrows did that yesterday. Like that was that was the right judgment of okay, I have the room to go in and maybe get a scoring chance out of this, and it's not going to necessarily wind up going on an odd man rush in the other way.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the chance. And Höglander reads it very well. He puts it back. The shot just doesn't click there.
Yeah.
And but yeah, overall, I think Burrows was the guy who I was most like. I don't know if worried's the right word, because like it wasn't so much of like a fear sort of thing. It was more just like a curiosity.
Like uncertain about what he brings and
what
how
he'll do
translate
against a full NHL roster,
Yeah.
playing regular NHL minutes. And he played the least amount. He played 11 minutes, but he did fine. That he was not the Canucks' biggest worry last night at all.
Agreed. No. One of the worries of the team, of course, was their first too many men penalty of the season, which is great. Gotta love the gas leak year reminders, I loved it.
That's not even just a gas leak year. That's a Travis Green era trademark.
Actually, Thomas Strantz pointed that out on the Vancast today, where he was like, in the Travis Green era, they're actually average. They're 16th in the league for too many men penalties.
Are they average compared to the rest of the league, or are they average compared to the rest to Canucks history?
Well, I don't know.
Because I'd be interested, because it feels like they take it all the time. Like it feels like it's a one per game, almost like a one every second game.
It's because you're watching them.
That's true, but I don't remember seeing as many. I don't remember. Maybe you know what? Maybe the key is here. If I'm thinking about it, realistically, like for example, like the Willie Desjardins era, maybe the reason they didn't take as many too many men penalties is because they were slow and they couldn't do much. And they weren't good. And
he didn't know what line to put out most of the time. So.
Which one has Megna and Chaput on it? Double shift them. That's that. And I think like looking back on it, like the Canucks hallmarks have never always been like their speed. Like has never been a huge factor for them. It's more been about the creativity and everything. Right. Like the Sedins weren't particularly fast in their they were quick, but they weren't like speed demons.
They weren't known
stretch.
for like being the speedsters.
No, right? Exactly. They were much more. It was much more just about the fact that they were going to
cerebral game.
Yeah, exactly. So it might be that. That is weird because honestly, I could swear that they have like the record. I could swear they have at least like the NHL record for most too many men calls per 60.
Surprisingly not.
Weird. Well, that's that again. Yeah, that probably is just because I'm watching them. That feels so wonky though.
I guess we'll get into the only real bad thing about the Canucks game, because realistically, all things considered, I thought everyone looked pretty fine for all their faults. Everyone acquitted themselves quite well. Yeah. The big glaring issue, which was even evident during the preseason as well, was the power play. Hasn't quite clicked. Obviously in preseason, they just didn't have the bodies or the correct bodies available to them on the power play during that time. Now they have their full complement of players available to them, and they go 1 for 5. I think in the final 2 power plays of the game, they register only 4 shots on goal.
Not good enough.
Which, for 4 minutes, one every minute from your top group is pretty rough.
And one of those was the other glaring Alex Chason mistake, in my opinion.
That one was that
was brutal.
So hard to watch.
So basically, I forget who feeds him the puck. I think it might have been Pettersson. It might have been Pettersson up from the half circle.
Yeah.
And it's right down low. Chason has no one on him. Absolutely no one. He has daylight. It's just him and Mike Smith. And this guy puts it directly into Mike Smith's chest. The shot right in.
Directly.
It is. It's bullseye.
It is
it's
not
a bullseye.
It's not a shot on goal.
No.
Frankly.
Really, no. It
pass.
Barely counts as a shot on goal. And he had all the time in the world to either pick a corner or probably in his case do the smarter thing, which is to shoot low into the pad for a rebound to kick out into the slot for, I believe, Horvat is the guy out in front at that point. And nope, he just throws it right into Mike Smith's chest and completely stops and whistle blows. That's a shot as a veteran. If you're a young guy, if you're Vasily Podkolzin and that's the decision you make, you get a pass because you're young and you're learning, and that's not something that, and that's something that takes time to get into.
Yeah.
But Jason's been in the league long enough. You got to not do that. You got to know not to take that shot.
Especially when like his advertising pitch was, he's a guy who won't play much at 5v5, but he's a great
Good
power
on the
play.
power play. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was rough from him. By the way, he had the second most shots on the team in that game. Did you know? That was 5 with 5 shots.
Pedersen led with 6.
Yep.
So
it is. I will say this. Like I'm willing to give like Chason more time at 5v5 in a regular standpoint, but I do not want to see him on the first unit again. At least not right away.
Me neither.
Let's see what he can do on power play 2.
Sure.
Maybe. But it's not even, and you and I were looking at the line rushes in practice before the game in Vancouver, and somebody posted like the power play units. Mm-hmm. And they made some weird calls. There were some very, very weird. Some like galaxy braining the power play a little bit. Like they were trying too hard to be clever almost. Because at one point Höglander was not on either of them. He was not taking the power play drills on either power play unit. Mm-hmm. And they did have Justin Dowling on PB2. And if you've been listening to the show the last few weeks, you know that I really like Justin Dowling. I don't want him on the power play. I want him for the PK, but not on the man advantage. No, that was a weird decision. And then chase on even more was like, okay, there was a call. There's a history of work there, but it did not look like there was last night. It looked like a guy who'd never taken a power play in his life.
Yeah, I kind of understand like the idea, like maybe they're overthinking their strategies, possibly. Like maybe like Trans pointed out in the Vancast, like maybe they were worried about McDavid coming out after power play 2's done, and they wanted a center out there, so that's why Dowling's available to them. But even then,
is the key decision there not to just split up Horvat and Pedersen? Like, does that feels like the right call in my opinion? Like
that would, like, logically you'd be like, yeah, just split up your centers, or split up Horvat, Pedersen, and Miller, so at least one of them is on PP2. But
in theory, they have enough players to do that now. Like maybe without Brock Besser, we're talking a little bit. It's slightly a different story.
Yeah.
But even then, I'm kind of looking at them like I see 8 forwards capable of being on both power play units. They're almost still trying too hard to have a power play 1 and a power play 2, when in theory they could kind of have a 1A and 1B.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd think, but I don't know. Like we said, maybe they're overthinking it way too much.
Yeah.
And they're obviously, maybe by next game when they're against Philadelphia, they might have like a completely different power play 2 because they're counting on Rasmus Ristolainen being caught out for a long shift on the Flyers' second PK unit. Like, you never know.
I will say I'm very interested to see Rasmus Ristolainen without the Buffalo shackles on him. Not that I think he's going to be like light years better or anything, but I feel like whenever you see players leave Buffalo, they're somehow much better. They're slightly better. They suddenly look much stronger. And
they're actually winning right now against Montreal.
Oh, good.
Pretty funny.
Oh, the Sabres?
Yeah.
Oh, Montreal. Montreal's in a weird spot too.
Yes.
Basically, with when Besser gets back, which could be against Philly, it might not be, like, because he was a game time decision, I guess, in terms of.
Yeah, he did take
he took
morning skate or whatever it was. He just wasn't ready to go.
Yeah, he wasn't ready to go. So in theory, he's probably going to be back in time for Philly. Maybe Detroit on Saturday, I think, is that game. I think they play 2 in a row.
Maybe.
And when Besser gets back, I think that's going to be a much better indication of where that power play is at and how they see it. It is a new coach too, so they have the new.
They have Jason King running it, so maybe it's
a little bit of a different.
Maybe he's playing a little too much gamesmanship or something.
Yeah, I think it'll. I think the Canucks again have, and I said this on Locked On today, was that. The Canucks in the Pedersen era in particular, I've noticed that they've really got, and well, actually this could go back really even to like the Sedin era. I think with their power plays, sometimes they work too hard to go for the perfect shot instead of just throwing volume and seeing if they can get a greasy goal in front of the net. They try, I think, way too hard to keep like that the umbrella like out and around the hash marks, and to the point where, and then you almost always go for the long bomb shot from the defenseman through the mess of skates instead of trying for like the quick shot in like around like the face-off circle and trying to see if they can force a rebound to like the two guys out in front of the net.
Yeah, they I don't want to say they're rigid with like their current like
I think that's a perfect way of putting it. It's very robotic.
And the weird thing to me is like it doesn't appear to have changed from last year. Like they still have that behind the net set up to Horvat in the slot. They like the Oilers clearly read it because they didn't get it once to work, and they know Pettersson is going for the one-timer. Hughes didn't even go for any
Pettersson doesn't even go. The weird thing is Pettersson doesn't even go for the one-timer that often.
Yeah.
He does the like Nick Bondi pointed this out, is he like does the fake shot and then he looks for the pass option instead, because he's almost, I think I don't know if this is, and I said I don't know if this is a coaching thing or if this is him and the way he is just that he likes to play, but he almost always tries to pass the puck off to somebody else. Like he wants to give someone else the shot rather than take it himself, even though he's got a great shot.
It's like the overthinking thing. Maybe he's like, oh, if I can't keep one-timing it because they know that's what I'm going to do. And it's like, well, when you have an elite one-timer, maybe that's what you should just do.
Sometimes you got Brock Besser on the other side, who's arguably got maybe a better shot, like when he's healthy. But you still should take it yourself sometimes here and there. And I just think back to the game I went to a couple years ago against the Rangers, where they were getting a lot of power play opportunities, and I remember seeing the Rangers be like telegraphing their passes and knowing exactly where the puck was going, to the point where I think they broke up the power play unit like 2 or 3 times mid like pass, and they were intercepting them. And I remember hearing on the last one that got intercepted by, I don't know, I might have been like Mika Zibanejad or something, or Chris Kreider. I remember hearing the entire arena just groan simultaneously because they all saw it coming. Yeah. Like you could see it from a mile away that they were going to lose that pass. And that's something that, again, I think this is game 1, so I'm not like super worried about it right away. I think they've got time. And again, new coach, they're learning probably some new systems that they're not like fully implementing yet.
Right.
But let's see what happens when they get Besser back, and let's see when we get like a few real games out of it to see how they adjust over time.
Yeah, the Canucks' next game, as we said, is against Philadelphia. They'll be playing against a former teammate of theirs, Zack MacEwen, who was claimed on waivers. That's the third bottom 6 forward or bottom 6 depth piece of theirs gone in this offseason. First it was Cole Lind, then Jonah Gadjevich.
And Zack MacEwen.
Now Zack MacEwen. All the young guys, all these guys that were put up on a pedestal by a certain faction of fans as to what reasons to not worry about the team direction.
The team did it. Like, I mean, you know, we could also throw an Olli Juolevi a little bit in there. I mean, Jim Benning compared him to Nicklas Lidstrom at one point, which was, I think, even if he did turn into the prospect he was, that's a really unfair comparison to make.
Jim loves his player comparisons. I can't remember whose article it was, but they basically like isolated all of Jim Benning's player comparisons, and they're all just like, ugh, why even say anything? It's so unfair to the player. Like, I remember...
Even if they turn out to meet those qualifications, that's so much pressure to put on a guy. Like I saw people... I remember when Gaudette came in, people started comparing him, like being like, oh, he's going to be the next Ryan Kessler. And I was like, if he's half the player Kessler is, I'm thrilled. That's fine.
If he's a 10th of the player Kessler is, he'll be good value for where he was drafted. And you know what? He provided a 40-point season in his debut, and they got Matthew Highmore out of him. So, I mean...
Yeah.
What can you say?
Yeah, exactly. It's MacEwen was in an interesting spot because here's the thing. He's a depth guy. He's had this like big come up, but you and I talked about it a lot in the last few shows. He didn't look good at all during the preseason. He was a guy that he definitely looked like a guy who probably should not be on the team. Like probably shouldn't be one of the main
He
12.
like had that vibe in camp of like complete tweener where you just knew he could give you like 5 to 8 games a season in the NHL and like he'd maybe max out at 6 minutes a game.
Yeah.
But realistically, he's better served playing in the AHL, where his speed is pretty fast for the AHL, but his decision making is only AHL level. It's not at the NHL level. I'm sure Philadelphia will give him like a good leash. They'll give him a good 8-game rope. He'll be beloved by the fan base because of his gritty play style, but he just wasn't good enough. Unfortunately for the team, it's just another asset dying on the vine for nothing. Yeah. And when that's the third forward asset dying on the vine in one offseason, it's a pretty bad look. Yeah. Especially when Zack MacEwen was basically held up by the organization as what our AHL team can do with our resources. This is a reason for you to not worry about our AHL process, because look at Zack MacEwen. We developed him into an NHLer.
He went from undrafted to this.
Yeah, and maybe he carves out like an 80-game season with Philadelphia, and he actually becomes a full-time NHLer, but it didn't happen here. Mm-hmm. So maybe they developed him enough to get him there, but they didn't...
To keep him. They didn't have enough there
to keep him here. Yeah. And he didn't show enough to warrant keeping him here on their roster either. Shit happens, but then you look at the farm system in the AHL and their prospect pool just in general, it isn't deep. There's not a lot there.
They have their veterans, but they don't have a lot of prospects anymore.
Yeah. And they've got guys they can call up this year as veteran depth, but they don't have like the forward U22 guy who could be something for them later.
They're all already on the team. Yeah. And even then there's not a whole lot of them. Outside of right now it's just Podkolzin and Rathbone, really.
Yeah. Or they're
if
hoping
you want to throw Höglander in there too.
Yeah, but they're like those guys are in the NHL.
Yes, they're full NHLers.
They're not prospects at this point.
No.
The prospects would be, okay, can Will Lockwood become a full-time bottom 6 NHLer for the team? Mm-hmm. Can Carson Folk become a bottom 6 center in the NHL? He's got a long way to go.
Become a defenseman, become a regular defenseman, that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a Jet Wu, a lot of people were like, "Oh, he's ready to come up." It's like, "No. He's not."
He needs more time.
He needs a full AHL season against actual AHL players before you can even consider calling him up. And I don't think people realize this. He's like the second or third call-up option now because they've only got Luke Schenn.
Yeah.
And then the buffer is Madison Bowie.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Is Noah Juleson right? No, he's a lefty, isn't he? I don't know.
I feel like he might be right, actually.
He might be right.
But he's clearly not an NHLer because they were just getting rid of him.
No,
No, he has enough. He has injury issues of his own, and he
might never. Yeah, and he might never be there. But he's just I will say the one thing that I also I think I don't have the tweet in front of me. I know I saw it though. Maybe Jacob can pull it up. I don't know. There was a tweet earlier today in regards to Zack MacEwen where basically at some point during the offseason he had...
You mean my tweet?
Was that yours?
Yeah.
Oh, it was yours. That's funny.
Yeah. I have it. It's
in the doc. Right, oh yeah. Is it in the doc? Okay. Yeah. It's the third and a fourth.
Yes, but it's Drance talking to his contacts in a NHL front office, and the NHL front office contact basically said, if the Canucks were a bit more proactive this past offseason, they might have been able to get a third or fourth round picks worth of trade value in some kind of offseason trade. This was before his camp, but it was after his relatively uninspiring 2020-2021 season.
He had the one cool picture of him just pummeling Derek Forbort after the cheap shot.
That's when they should have traded
him
right then.
And that was it. That's his tenure. A lot of people really liked Zack MacEwen again for the story of it all, especially because he was not? Yeah, you want to root you want to root for the players that come up through the long way around. Yeah. That because you want to see you in a way it's almost like it's one of those if they can do it so can I kind of things, even though it's not actually like that for people, but there's that concept of this guy who went undrafted wound up in the NHL. Yeah,
in the third tier Quebec or Maritime Junior League.
Yeah, he was in the queue. He was in the queue, I think, when they found it, when they got him.
In his 18-year-old season, he was in the Maritime or Quebec Maritime AAA League, which is if you're 18 years old in that league, you just don't have an NHL shot.
And he did it anyway.
And he played a really good year in the Maritime junior league, which is like kind of like the Alberta, like the BCHL
It's like
version.
the BCHL, okay.
And then from there, he got picked up by a QMJHL team. He had a growth spurt, and then they just kind of put him at center, and he worked his bag off to get to the AHL, earn a contract, and get to the NHL, where he was floating around the past 2 years. Wish him all the best because his dog's adorable.
Yes,
and
little Lennon.
Yeah, he's faced his fair share of unfortunate circumstances. Dad passed away last year before the bubble. Or sorry, I guess that'd be a year and a half now.
Wow,
Time flies, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's faced a lot of adversity while at Canuck, but he's overcome a lot to get where he is today. So you got to just shout him out for what he's accomplished so far.
Yeah, and hopefully Philly finds a long-term fit for him. We know the history of the Flyers. They're a team that likes the big tough guys. Alain Vigneault is their coach. He likes his big tough guys. Tanner Glass was a guy he leaned on a lot in Vancouver.
Maybe he'll be his Tanner Glass.
Maybe he'll be this generation's Tanner Glass for the Vigneault Flyers. Maybe it's not out of the realm of possibility.
We've seen crazier crap in the NHL.
Absolutely. And now the only question is, will he score 3 goals against the Canucks tomorrow or 4? That is because if there's one thing we've learned from this team in the last however many years, it's that every player comes back to revenge tour on them.
The revenge tour is alive and well.
That would be, I would honestly, if that happened, I'd just be like, I think I would believe, I'm not a religious man in any way, but if MacEwen came in and scored a goal, like a game winner or something, or any goal against the Canucks in the first game back against them, I'd be like, yep, there's a god, and he just hates Vancouver. He just hates Vancouver.
He gets it. I guess we'll get into, we'll briefly talk about the Francesco Aquilini interview that he did with Sportsnet 650.
Yeah.
Not really much to glean from. It was like the hockey man version of answers for like an executive.
Yeah.
Just focusing on the path. You should take your time to go listen to it. Mm-hmm. It's worth listening to, even if you don't get much out of it, because it's good to know where the owner's head is at all times. Even if it's like I said it earlier today, that you should always take doesn't matter who the owner is and what team they own. You should always take what they say with a grain of salt, because their job is to be PR and to be, in a way, whenever they do that stuff, is to put a positive front for the team at all times, even if things aren't going super well. So always, err to the side of caution when you listen to what they have to say. Yeah. And I will say this, people were obviously, I think, making fun of the fact that he was defending Jim Benning and everything in the interview process. But at the end of the day, that's what he's supposed to do. That's what his job is. If he didn't, that would be... It's his guy at the end of the day, right? He's stuck by him for this long. If he came into the 650 interview and he's like, oh, I'm watching Jim, seeing if his decision-making paid off.
That would be far more alarming.
That'd be a PR disaster.
Yeah, exactly.
So he can't. Even if he did think that way, he's never going to say it on a public interview with the radio station that holds the team's rights.
Yeah, the amount of extra fires you would have to put out for that.
Yeah. It'd be funny.
It'd be funny. It's exactly the same line of logic as how a player, even if they want to be traded, will never come out and say, "Yeah, I want to trade, get me out of here." Yeah. They're not going to do that, because that would be a PR disaster for them.
They'll say their contract sucks, but they won't do the thing being like, "Please get me out." It isn't the NBA or
it's not hockey's kind of the only, honestly, most sports are kind of like that. You don't hear a lot of guys going openly being like, I want to trade. The NBA is kind of one of the
except for Ben Simmons in the 76ers.
Yeah. And even then, I don't think has he publicly said he wants to trade? Okay.
His whole shtick is get me out. I want out. I don't want to play here anymore.
Fair enough.
Power to you.
Yeah, power to you if you want to make, honestly, if a player wants to make that statement, that's honest, and I respect that.
Kind of respect it.
Yeah. So yeah, with Aquilini, I think the most important thing about this whole thing was,
don't diss Jim.
There's a little bit of that.
Do that.
There's a little bit of that. There's also just I think it was just the fact that we've heard from him again, because honestly, I was talking with Jacob about this earlier and on Locked On. This is the first time he's done a public interview since, I think, the 2019 NHL draft announcement.
Yeah. You know why? It's because he turned off the taps, and he knew that he was going to be screwing Jim for the next 2 years. And so he stole away, hid away from the limelight, and let Jim fall on his sword for his financial choices with the team. That's why it was very interesting why the tune changed over the last year, where it went from we're ready to contend to, these things take time. You can't rush it.
Yeah.
Bit odd.
I haven't listened to the full interview. I've listened to a chunk of it, not the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Did any of the Sportsnet people, and the Sportsnet people actually asked some very good questions.
They did.
They did. Dan
about
Riccio asking about Jake Virtanen was a very good thing. Was a very good thing to ask.
Yeah.
Because it caught Aquilini off guard. He was not expecting that question.
Dan has terrible Canucks takes, but man, did he ever nail that?
Yeah, that was a very good question to ask, and I have all the respect for Dan Riccio for asking it.
Yep, for sure.
And the one question I would have liked to have known, I don't know if anyone asked, did anyone ask him about a potential president of hockey ops? Did anyone ask him about that? Because here's the thing, right? The reason that Aquilini has to go and face this kind of music at all is largely to do with the fact that he doesn't have a president of hockey operations on staff right now since Trevor Linden left.
And Jim Benning is very bad at the PR side of the
Jim
team.
Benning is PR is not his thing.
Communications.
No.
Communications are not his specialty. That's why you usually get a president of hockey operations, someone who can be a front-facing person.
Trevor Linden was he the best president of hockey ops in the world? No. Was he good at PR? Yes, he was very good at PR. He knew what he was doing on that stuff. And the thing that Francesco, I don't think has figured out really yet is that that other owners don't have to necessarily do this at all because they have the president there. The president is the buffer. That's the guy who they put in front to say, hey, things are going great. Everything's fine. Don't you worry. We have a plan, etc. That's what their whole thing is. And because they don't have that right now, that's why he's having to go and do it, or he's making Jim go and do it, which is not
which usually
a
does
good
not
call.
Result in
Most general managers do not have to do their own PR. In this league. They always have a buffer. There's always one.
Yeah, most of the time they have a buffer,
and I would love to know if they're like. I think the answer is obviously no. They're not looking for one, but I'd like to hear that from him. I would have liked to have heard, hey, yeah, we're not interested in a president. We're fine with the structure as is, because frankly, they should be looking for one.
Yeah, I agree. But it probably won't happen because those things cost money. The real funny thing about this interview was him saying the word diss over and over again. Like, it felt like the 2000s when Eminem was coming up and like diss tracks were all the rage.
If
on
Francesco
the internet.
Aquilini did a diss track, I'd listen.
If he did a diss track about like Uncle Elite for creating the banner,
I got a great name, Frank Ocean.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I've never heard that name before.
Never before. Nope, I got it.
I think you should do that.
He should trademark that right now and sell shirts on Vanbase. That was the whole like banner thing, like that was talked about, which was
awkward.
It was a little awkward. Like it was interesting that it was asked about.
Yes, certainly.
And again, I expect for him to be like, nah, talk about it, being a cheap shot and stuff. Like, yeah, he's the owner. He should say that. Like, he 100% should say that about his general manager and defend that sort of thing, right? Like, even if, again, whether or not you like it or not, that's the owner's job is to defend your guys. And I think he did that. Now the question is, will he be willing, I think, to step up and do more interviews with people who aren't Sportsnet 650? As much as, again, 650 did a great job with that interview, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. That they're still the rights holder, so they get certain benefits that the rest of other media outlets won't get because they're not rights holders.
Yeah.
So I would like to see him sit down and do open availability and answer questions from other media source outlets at some point, and hopefully
maybe the CreaseCast.
Yeah, maybe the CreaseCast. Hey, if Francesco, if you want to come on, you are 100% can. I don't know why you would, but come on over. We'll buy pizza. I would very much like to see him get in front and do like an open interview with other outlets again as well, hopefully down the line. Hopefully he starts doing that more this season.
All right. NHL news. Actual things happening, of course, because the league has kicked off. First things first, just a quick note. Shout out to one-time Vancouver Canucks AHL play-by-play caster Jason Shia for coming out. Bob McKenzie, of all people, wrote about it.
Yeah, that was
strange. He doesn't usually write that often. But when he does, or especially like stories like this, like you wouldn't expect that from him. So
is Bob McKenzie, I feel like, has transcended into hockey's version of Oprah, where he's like, where he only shows up when the most important things come up.
Yeah, fair.
And this is one of them. Like, this is a very good thing. And it's cool that he's of all, if there's anyone you would want to be writing about this sort of thing and would have the care,
the reach.
Yeah, the reach and the care to do it properly, Bob McKenzie is one of them.
Yeah, I'm glad it was him and not like Pierre LeBrun.
It was a very good article. Like, and it was a good article and
great story.
Shout out to Jason.
Yeah,
good for him.
That's all you can really
happy
say.
For him. Very happy for him.
As for some of the other league things, the Golden Knights played their home opener against the Seattle Kraken. Apparently, they were very, very upset because a kid scored his first goal in the franchise and he celebrated. And God forbid, should you ever celebrate in a league called the NHL? So pathetic.
So I went and watched that play, like just after I heard. So like the whole Pete DeBoer basically was like the Golden Knight. Our players were upset about the celebration or whatever. I can't find the direct quote now, but it was something along those lines. And and there were two things I thought about. Like, so one, I went to check the actual like highlight.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't anything. There was nothing.
Just a minor celebration.
It was a very normal hockey celebration. There was nothing like over the top about it, unless maybe Morgan Geekie said something passing the bench.
Fuck you.
You're like, which I don't think he did, because they said like, oh, they saw the celebration or something. Like that was very, and it was like, and then they got upset about that. And Drancer put out a tweet where he was like, I think this is the kind of like mentality that can get teams in trouble down the line, and the Knights are a team that definitely that has gotten them not in trouble with the league or with the other teams or anything, with themselves, where they internally where
the
they
way
get
they deal with adversity or whatever has not been great.
It's not a healthy way of dealing with it.
No, not quite.
But I will also say that Pete DeBoer, from what I've seen from his time in Vegas and more specifically from what I saw with his time with the Sharks, he's a little bit of a BS artist. Like, in terms of like media things, I don't think I've ever seen a coach who kind of just makes up crap like in these things. Like, he just makes up these like weird rah things like this.
Okay.
And I'm always like, or it's like not made up, or it's like just made up is the wrong word of putting it. Overly dramatizes
overstates
how important it was.
Okay.
So I kind of was like, I think that's not actually true. Like, I don't think they actually took it all that crazy seriously.
The team probably didn't even think about it. But
it was just one of those. He came out and was like, "Yeah, that's what happened." Like, put that on notice in the league, sort of thing. Don't celebrate against us thing. Because he's done that before, like that kind of stuff before in San Jose and Vegas.
Right.
So I'm like, I don't totally buy that they were actually all that mad about it. But if anyone would be, like, the Golden Knights are a team that has a history of kind of beating themselves because they get too upset over very minor things, and that kind of like distracts them from the game. And I think, we'll see what happens down the line. But that if that was true, boy, was that a very
it's a
silly,
very strange thing to get upset over.
And also, like, the thing of like, they were like, the whole quote was like, oh, they're determined to go out and get the next goal. It's like, as opposed to if they hadn't celebrated, they would have just let them win. Like, was that would they have just let them win in that case?
They would just give it up because the guy celebrated. Is that
they only because he celebrated. That's why they were like, okay, now we gotta win this game. That's why I was like, this is such a nothing quote. There's nothing of actual value here.
Yeah.
This is a very dumb quote.
If he wanted to get mad about Gabe Landeskog trying to murder his young centerman, sure.
Did you, on Kirby Doc, the hit on Kirby Doc, that was
like, why?
So for context, they were winning that game, I think, for like 3-0 at that time or 3-1.
Yeah, it wasn't a close game. Like it was a complete stomp. It's just like,
Which
why
shouldn't even matter in this particular case anyway. But also,
it's a
it
dumb
feels
hit
worth
regardless
noting
of like standings anyway.
That, if you haven't seen the hit, basically Doc is I think he had lost his footing on the ice. He was like in a crouched position of some kind as he's trying to play the puck. He plays it away. Puck's off his stick. Landeskog comes in, and this is about 2 feet from the boards, not far from the boards. He goes in and he hits him head first into the boards
aggressively,
and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why would in what universe is that a good hit to make? And helps you in any way?
Sometimes you just need to murder a kid.
That was taken out of context. That's a very bad quote for you.
Maybe he texted Tyler Myers before the game, was like, hey, do you want to beat the shit out of someone and see who gets on Sportsnet first? And
noted friends Gabriel Landeskog, and
they're total bros. I just have a feeling it's canon.
That was 2 games. He got a 2-game suspension, $70K forfeited of his brand new contract. I think that's low. That's very low considering he's apparently a repeat offender. Apparently he's been suspended a few times now.
Apparently he's got a bit of a hot streak in him.
Yeah, he's a bit of a red mist guy, where he suddenly just snaps a little bit.
He sees red and he goes for blood.
Yeah, and it goes badly. Yeah, there was no need to make that hit. They're a very good hockey team that was crushing Chicago.
Indeed. I think player to score his first NHL goal, Bowen Byram.
Yeah, former
Colorado.
Vancouver Giant.
So that should tell you right there why that hit was unnecessary, because Bowen Byram is scoring an NHL goal in his first game.
That should have been the prime moment here.
They could have taken the foot off the gas a bit, maybe.
Yeah, they were doing fine. They were doing just fine. Bowen Byram's a great player. He's going to be he's also a little bit of a he's also a little bit of a red mist guy sometimes. So I'm interested to see how he does the NHL long term, in terms of if he keeps that in check a little bit more. But yeah, he's a great offensive talent. When I saw him play with the Giants, he was very clearly in a league where he had nothing left to learn. He was so clearly a step ahead of everybody.
Right.
A clear, I've never seen a player more obviously NHL ready playing in the junior leagues than Bowen Byram in 2019-20. It was something else to see. So I'm glad he's getting his mojo going there.
Yeah. Final things. The first couple broadcasts on TNT and ESPN. Watched a few of them.
Yeah. What did you think?
I don't like Wayne Gretzky on the panel. That's for sure. He is too. I don't know.
Wayne Gretzky, right from the beginning, when they said we're bringing on Wayne Gretzky for the TNT panel, I was like, I see why your mind would go there, but there's also what is Wayne Gretzky gonna bring? Considering I don't think he's not really that charismatic to begin with, but also when you're as good a player as Wayne Gretzky, what kind of analysis can you bring? To when your whole thing was, I was a transcendent talent who just crushed everything in my path. Why don't you just do what I do?
Yeah, and the proof of concept that being that he couldn't translate what he knew into being an NHL head coach.
Yeah.
His Arizona teams were not good. No,
he's Wayne Gretzky. He did everything he did is not something that regular NHLers can do. And, there's a reason why, say, Michael Jordan isn't on NBA broadcasts or anything, right?
Yeah, you have to have that blend of charisma, knowledge, and being able to convey, an interesting fact.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's his first day. It's his first day.
He has plenty of time to figure it out. But
it didn't do anything for me is all I'm saying.
Yeah, and that's honestly fair. There's a reason why he's not doing it in Canada. He's never done it in Canada either, because it's just that's just not what his best attributes are. So I did, but overall, I saw some of the TNT broadcast bits, and I liked them. I liked the overall mood they set there. They've got some bugs to work out, and there were certain things where that I actually did like the idea, the idea, the execution wasn't there. Like you sent me the clip yesterday of I forget his Lapierre, not
Hendrix Lapierre.
Hendrix Lapierre
NHL goal.
No relation to
no
Max,
audio.
I don't believe. Yeah, no, there's what. Okay, producer Jacob was saying something. There was no play-by-play audio on the clip, and the reason for that was not because like there was a glitch out like I had originally thought, or it was actually because during what they were doing is they were actually, the main TNT broadcast was doing like essentially like a thing where they were actually going back to studio and asking Gretzky questions specifically about Alex Ovechkin, because Alex Ovechkin was having himself a game and is, expected potentially going to break his goals record at some point down the line here.
Yep.
And so they were actually doing a thing where they were talking back to the people in studio during the game, which I actually kind of like that idea. Like, that's a cool idea.
Yeah. In theory, it should work. Unfortunately, they just didn't have the bugs worked out. So what happened was, who was it? Al Arbor or
it was Kenny Albert and I want to say Keith Jones is the
one of
guy?
the two was basically throwing back to Wayne Gretzky in the broadcast booth, and Wayne Gretzky was talking apparently, like you could hear it on some feeds,
and on the other feed you could see it as well,
but it didn't work. And so it was just like this weird silence where you couldn't hear anything
except the crowd noise.
Yeah, which is fine because like the crowd noise was really good and the pop when Lapierre scored was great.
That was actually kind of cool.
You would have just hoped for there being a play-by-play for this kid's like first NHL goal.
Yeah.
So
what's nice is the radio broadcast probably caught it, so you can stitch those together to put the actual play-by-play broadcast goal on.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. ESPN's broadcast, we saw a little bit of it when you came over to record on Tuesday. What did you like?
It's fine.
Overall, I like theirs as well. Like and I like that Emily Kaplan is more involved. She's great. Emily Kaplan rocks as an analyst. I think I didn't like seeing Mark Messier on my television. I didn't like Chris Chelios either. But I like what they're going for there. I'm interested to see what they go for long term. Like they've got a pregame show now. They've got like a whole thing. They put Sidney Crosby on Monday Night Football to promote the league, which again, both of these leagues or these new broadcast people have done so much more to promote the NHL than NBC did in 15 years. In one day, they've already eclipsed that. And I'm just so thankful for that because God, it wasn't dying with NBC. It was just very stagnant.
Just stagnating. Yeah.
Yes,
Nothing was happening.
They were not trying. They were very much phoning it in for a long stretch in that.
It really wasn't great. I also don't like how the TNT broadcast is like an entire panel of men. Like
that needs some. That definitely needs some work.
That's outdated as fuck.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
ESPN's has Linda Cohn, I believe. Linda Cohn, who's been with hockey for a long time,
and Emily Kaplan,
and Emily Kaplan as well.
Yeah.
I think TNT has AJ Malesko as well, or is that ESPN too?
I don't know. But for your first debut broadcast,
yeah, you gotta have more.
You roll out 6 dudes on the single desk, like that's ridiculous.
Yeah. That was a little bit weird. I didn't like that at all.
Otherwise, new Sportsnet Graphics, they changed out their package, which was pretty great.
Yeah, it looks good. Clean. It's clean.
It's a bit cleaner.
I would like a logo on there, but I like team logos on there, but
yeah, I get the simplicity, but I mean, it makes sense. It's kind of like if you follow the UFC, like they have for each fighter, like they have the color of their trunks as the defining factor over under their name. Mm-hmm. So I get it. They're like, you can't really see the logo from the camera angle, so you might as well just boil it down to the jersey color, so fans will or spectators will know which team is which. Yeah.
One thing I noticed from the ESPN broadcast is for the Knights Kraken game is they were abbreviating Vegas as VGS, which is actually which is unusual. Because usually it's VGK because they go Vegas Golden Knights, not VGS just for Vegas. Yeah. So that was kind of interesting. Like maybe they changed that later.
They did say they actually put out a thing saying from now on broadcast Vegas will be known as VGK, not VGS.
Okay, cool. Because I like VGK better.
VGS.
It's just a weird one.
My brain wants to pronounce it like Regis Philbin, so I want to be like Vegis.
That's literally what I just thought. That's
the
so
Vegis
funny.
Golden Knights. Yeah. That's all I can think of.
I also liked the ESPN song back. That was cool. They got
Yeah, we were
Justin
listening to
Bieber.
that
Yeah, we
before
were
we-
listening to that before
yeah.
the show. They got Justin Bieber to like narrate that, which is like, geez, what a
Well, he's got
flex.
He's got to salvage his career a bit, doesn't he?
Yeah, I
He's
guess
got to
so.
get some goodwill with the
And
fans.
there was one other thing I did also want to mention. Oh, this is something I want to see on the Canadian broadcast. Like, if there's one thing the American broadcast definitely had that the Canadian broadcasts need, it's they had rules analysts go back to in studio. Both of them, ESPN and TNT, they both had them.
Yeah.
That when there was a video review call, they would go back to the they'd send a shot back to the studio of the rules analyst. Usually, like I think both of them were former NHL refs, and who would explain
Tim Peel,
this
isn't
is
it?
no, Tim Peel is Daily Faceoff. I think maybe one of them is
Oh
Tim Peel.
no, you're right. It's Daily Faceoff.
I think one of them is
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out when we actually know.
We'll figure it out. But like and they were like, so this is what happens in the play. This is why I think they're gonna call goal. I think they're gonna call goal here. For these reasons, et cetera, et cetera. I love that, and I
fine.
absolutely love that. And I wish they did that on the Sportsnet
They will never do it
broadcast.
for Canada.
No, because some people will be like,
Canadians are snobbish, and I
Yeah.
guarantee the first time they ever have a rules panel, they're gonna get 50 letters to the CRTC being like, the broadcast is for idiots.
What did you think of the one last thing I'll touch on, because I know this is very inside baseball for some people. What did you think of like I think ESPN was the only one using this camera angle, but it was like the one that was kind of a little bit
like
like
the
over the
sky
ice,
cam kind
the
of thing?
kind of sky cam thing.
I don't mind it.
It doesn't ruin your experience. It's just unusual.
I don't mind it at all, to be honest. Like, I'm all for different looks, different changes. It wasn't that intrusive.
Yeah.
It's just challenging your typical view of the game
And seeing the camera
from the third level or whatever. So
Yeah.
fine.
I will say that, you know what, I loved it, but not because I thought I got a lot out of it or anything, but because I think that particular camera angle that they had is really good for beginner fans, which I think is the point. Like, I get why hardcore hockey fans who've been with the game for forever, I'll be like, what is this? This is stupid.
Right.
But again, the whole thing with this broadcast move in the US is the concept that it's going to bring in a lot of new people to the sport that didn't watch before. Yeah. And actually, if you saw the original, the ratings from the first day, they broke the ratings records
through the roof.
Like I think they said it's the most watched NHL opening day in league history or something, which is great.
Sure. Hopefully a lot of those views are new viewers.
Yeah. And that camera angle, I think, is really good for people who don't know the nuances of like when the puck is moving, where it's going to go, because I think you get a better view of the whole ice.
You get a better feel for just kind of like the play of the game.
Yeah, you can see it unfolding more. There was one where it really worked, where it was the long shot. The Penguins took a long shot in from the blue line that beat Vasilevsky, I think, through the 5-0. A bad goal for Vasilevsky.
Sure.
But I think if you're a fan that is new to the sport, the regular camera angle, you don't see that puck. You just see it enter. You just see it in the net. But because of the way that camera angle is focused, you can very clearly see the puck flip through the air, land in front, and in the net.
Yeah.
And I think for somebody who's learning the sport and picking it up for the first time, that's very helpful. So hopefully they keep that. Hopefully they don't. Hopefully hardcore fans don't get too aggro about it and let them use it to try and bring in some new people.
They probably will.
Yeah.
If you guys enjoyed this episode,
Speaking of broadcasts
with the most professional graphics and music and broadcast overlays, we don't have any women on the panel, but hey, we don't, we're not a mega national company, so you can't get mad at us. Thanks everyone for tuning into this episode. Episode was 144 now.
144.
My goodness, we are
9 episodes into this season already.
Ugh, that's weird. We'll be back at it again next week with some more content. If you want to follow me, I'm at Cody Sievertson on Twitter. My site, ahlnuxharvest.com. And I believe there's an Instagram handle in that same name as well. Lachlan, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Lock in the Crease. You can find me over on Locked On Canucks, the podcast I do with Nick Bondi, Monday to Friday. And you can find my writing at lockandthecrease.com, and maybe somewhere else in the near future. Maybe keep an eye on my Twitter handle. I might be announcing something cool pretty soon in terms of writing stuff. So keep that in mind for now. And also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/CreaseCast for $5 a month. You get bonus shows. You get some little extra content from us here and there. We're working on some new stuff, especially now we got intern producer Jacob over here waving very tiredly over at us right now. And we're going to be doing some more stuff there. Off the post episodes coming pretty quick here. We've been working on a new format for them to set for the YouTube videos. So that'll be out pretty soon as well. And then $1 tier if you just want access to the CreaseCast Discord and some other stuff and some little other bonus stuff as well.
Yeah, thanks, guys. We'll catch you next time, hopefully to recap another Canucks victory.
Well, the first one, the first victory.
Oh yeah,
the second moral victory.
Yeah, it is moral victory season, so hopefully we'll see you back for another one of those. Bye, everybody.
Bye.